27 years ago, I started an organization called Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And our purpose is to rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. I believe in God's order, and that order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. When a woman takes over, then all hell breaks loose because it's not the order of God. And it's not like a competition with the woman. It just is God's order. And when you have that order, it works. When you break that order, it fails. And in today's society, most men are living under the woman instead of under Christ. And that's what the primary problem is. And they're set up in the homes to become that way. Our battle is a spiritual battle all the time. It's a warfare between good and evil, right versus wrong. It's never a physical battle. Even though we do physical fights, of course, but the real battle is between good and evil. And men represent God. They represent Christ on earth if they've been born again. Even a weak man still represents God. He might be a weak one, but he still represents that. You know, while growing up, I didn't have my father there. My father got my mother pregnant when they were teenagers. And when she told him about it, he said, no, that's not my baby. And so he wouldn't marry her. He wouldn't do the right thing. And my mother became very angry at him. And so she ended up marrying my stepfather before I was born, because in those days it was an embarrassment to have children out of wedlock. So she didn't want me born out of wedlock, so she married my stepfather. But as a kid growing up, I didn't want my stepfather. He was a good man. He tried to be nice to me. He did everything that a stepfather would do, but my soul did not accept him. My spirit wanted my earthly father. And so whenever, I would ask my mother about him, my dad, she'd say, oh, he's no good, forget about him. And so I started to resent her for that because I wanted my father. And I remember being a kid and I used to say, wow, I want my father. I remember my father would come around sometimes because I was living with my grandmother. And my cousin's dad lived with us too. We all grew up as brothers. My grandmother raised us. And my father would come around from Indiana to visit. It was like, whenever he came, I felt completed. But he would go back, that boy came back again. That way down in my soul, I was yearning for my father. And so, long story short, I finally got a chance to meet my father, and I asked him what happened. And he told me what happened. And in that very moment, well, what happened before that is that I came to California, and as a young man, I had fear and doubt and worry and insecurities, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life at all. My plan was to, and I had started doing it somewhat, my plan was to buy a home, get a sports car, and have some sharp clothes, and get all the women I could get. That's what I was living for. Because I had that boy and I thought that can satisfy me. It would not. And so finally I asked God to let me see what's wrong with me. Because I would ask the preachers, and the black preachers at the time, and they said it was racism, that the white man was doing this to me. And so I believed into that, and if you know, whenever you believe a lie, that lie controls you, and the person that you believe it from control you as well. And so I fell into that whole thing for a while. But I asked God to let me see what was wrong. Let me see myself. Because I had read in the Bible that know thyself, right? Most people do not know themselves. They don't know themselves at all. And the beginning of salvation is to know thyself. And so I asked God, let me see myself. Let me see what's going on with me. And I forgot I asked, and I was getting dressed for work. And I saw at a glance, I was in the mirror, I saw this dark spirit inside of me. And it wasn't like a dark outside, it was like a wicked darkness inside of me. And I had never seen that before. And I'm like, wow, that's something else. And then God allowed me to see that I needed to forgive. And because it says, when you forgive others, he will forgive you, right? And I was about 38 years old at the time. My mother came out to visit her sister here in LA. And I knew I had to go and forgive her. And so I'm driving over there, and fear just overtook me. The closer I got to the house, the more fear overtook me. I'm thinking, wow, why am I so afraid of my mother? I'm a grown man, and I'm afraid of my mother. And I would every woman I dated, I dealt with her like she was my mother. I had to cater to her. and all kind of stuff. So I go in the house, and by this time, I just had total fear. And I said, I need to talk to you. And right away, Satan is saying, don't do it. You're going to mess up her vacation and all that. So I take her to the room, and I said to her, all of my life, I have resented you because you tried to turn me away from my father. You had no patience. And I'm sorry for that. It wasn't right, but I'm sorry for being angry at you about it. And in that very moment, God forgave me. He took away all of my fears, all of my doubts, all of my worries, and gave me perfect peace. And that was 28 years ago. And I've gone through more hell in the last 28 than I've gone through prior to that, right? But I have no fear. And growing up, I used to wonder, what is it like to be a son of God? Because the Bible said we should be sons of God. What is it like to be a son of God on earth? I want to know that. I now know. When God forgave me, after I forgave my mother, He became my father. Because once I reconnected with my earthly father, it allowed me to go back to God. No man gets to God unless he goes through his father. The fathers are sons of God. No man gets to the Father unless they go through the Son. And how can you ever love God and hate your earthly father? You're never going to be able to do it. You can read the Bible until the cows come home. You're not going to be able to do it. God is not going to forgive you, and you're not going to be free as long as you hate your father. And the man is hated because of who he represents. He represents Christ on earth. And evil understands that. And so it's always attacking the man, degrade him, call him a molester, a hater, whatever, an abuser. And they want to destroy that family, take that man out, you take the Christ out. And so God gave me perfect peace. And when I got back with my father and I became father and son. And it wasn't like I needed anything physically from him. I didn't need money or anything. But my soul yearned for my father. Every soul yearns for the Father. Salvation is about returning to the Father. I hear a lot of Christians say, oh, I've been saved, I've been saved. They haven't been saved. They still have fear. They still have doubt. They still are attached to the world. They're attached to people, places, and things. And you can't be of God and be attached to the world. It does not work that way. Amen. You can only love God and nothing else. You only love Him. And then when you love Him with all your heart, soul, and might, then the love, He makes a home in you. And the love that He gives is transferred to your wife and your children. We don't have love to give. When I ask my guests, did you love yourself? And they say, yes. That's a lie. They don't love themselves. Where you get love from to love yourself? It doesn't work that way. Our love comes from God. And then God's love is passed down to the women and children. I also want you to know that you can overcome that, but you've got to see that you're wrong. That you're wrong for having the anger. It's abnormal for men to have anger. Every man that has anger has the nature of his mother. It's not normal for men to have anger. That's why you can find no peace in that. Because it's not your natural state of being. Our nature is a solid foundation. It's honesty, it's trust, it is a sound mind, good health. And when there's trouble in the home, because the Father is working through you, you're able to help your wife, and especially wife, overcome the conflicts that she's dealing with. Because she will look at you and see the right way to go. But when you're weak and pathetic, she can't see the right way to go. And then a father is supposed to protect the children from the mother who is angry. But the father needs his wife in the way that he needs a mother. So he's not going to stand up to his wife. He's going to let her destroy the children. Because he has not overcome the identity of his mother. And so he needs the wife. He needs her love. He treats her like she's his mother. And he doesn't stand up because he doesn't want mama to be mad. So he will let her destroy his children. Because he needs mama instead of mama needing him. Your wife is supposed to come into your world. You're not supposed to go into her world. And your world is of God. And evil understands this. It really does. And it's trying to destroy you. And if you notice, a lot of parents are doing the best that they can, fathers and mothers. but they're not of God. They don't have love. And one thing, we talked about the Bible. You can read the Bible until the cows come home too. And all you have is a head full of knowledge. The knowledge of good and evil. And that's a sin. The letters kill us. And the knowledge puffs you up and makes you think that you know God when you just know about Him, but you don't know Him. You don't see Him as your Father. You need wisdom. You don't need knowledge. When knowledge would fade away, the wisdom would come. But don't hold on to knowledge. You got to return to wisdom, but you got to forgive your mothers and return to your fathers. You got to, otherwise you will never know peace. You will always have fear. You will always have doubt. You will be alcoholics and drug addicts and sex addicts and fear addicts and insecure addicts. Before I forgave my parents, I could barely speak up. I would try to speak up, and it would come from here like really powerful and strong, and then it would get here. And it would get here just locking my throat. It just locked there. And then by the time it came out, it's like, yes. I don't have that anymore. I don't have that anymore. And I truly see God as my Father. I don't see Him as God. This big person I'm trying to get to. He is my Father. In the Lord's Prayer it says, our Father, which art in heaven. It doesn't say our God, which art in heaven. God is our Father. But you're never going to know that until you forgive. And when you forgive, and when you go to your parents or whomever you need to forgive, don't do it. Don't ask them to forgive you. You forgive them. You go and you say, I'm sorry for having anger against you. I'm wrong. It's wrong for the way you treat me, of course, I realize that, but I'm suffering because I resent you. Because all anger is of the devil. Everybody who has anger, Satan is your father. And I know people are going to say, well, Jesus had anger, not this kind of fallen state anger. He had discernment. And we are to have discernment too without hating. And when you leave out that hate part, you won't be overtaken by evil. You will overcome evil. But you got to drop the hate. You got to speak up, but don't hate. Speak up, but don't resent. And so go and apologize. I'm sorry for resenting you for what you did. And if they start crying, don't fall for it. Let them cry. Because all they're just trying to do is manipulate you. I did the best I could do. I'm your mama. I brought you in this world. Your old dad was no good. You just look at that and let her say what you want to say. Say, look, I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry for holding this against you, because I realize now you can help yourself. And I become like you. I'm sorry for that. Because when you judge it like that, you shall be judged. When you put it out, will come back. And so you got to return to your natural state of being. Women need this like you need Christ. They need you to be a man. And they can't determine what a man is. You have to become a living example of a man. And a man is not a macho person. He's of love, real love, not emotional love. The love that has no anger. Love is no hate. And you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it. It's a light unto your feet. I'm telling you, that's the only way you're going to become a son of God. You must forgive. All right? I just want to ask, I know I'm out of time, but I want to ask 3 people, I got 4 hours. I asked 4 out of each hour. I used to be so weak and so afraid and so emotional. Every man who has emotion is a woman. And you're no good to women. Just imagine Christ was emotional. You go to Christ for help, and you're like, I know how you feel. I feel the same way. Right here. If you could change one thing in your life, what would it be?
More conviction in a certain goal I want to accomplish.
More conviction in a goal that you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Have no doubt. I guess have no doubt.
I'm sorry?
Have no doubt.
Okay. Good. I asked my new friend, what do you want out of life?
I just want to live the best life I possibly can and wake up every day when my feet hit the ground. I can't wait to get started. when you spoke about the Father and everything, I had the biggest blessing I had in my lifetime was making peace with my father before he passed. And the reason for that was he was incredibly weak.
Yeah,
And he allowed my mother to beat the living crap out of me emotionally.
yeah,
And from the time I was 13 on, I sought other people to help me. And going to a long way to forgive him was very powerful. And the conversation you spoke about with the mother, I had that conversation with my mother also.
Right.
I forgave her for everything because I said, the only thing I could figure is you didn't know any better.
that's right. Mothers don't know better. Their mothers have messed them up. They became like their mothers, and they're going to do it to your children. And they can't help it because no one has ever told them how to forgive and let it go.
And I think the only thing a real man can do is help the woman that he loves to let go of her anger.
Yes, sir. Don't go into her hell. Bring her out of the hell.
That's right. Take it to your side.
Uh,
And that's a heck of a thing to do. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to do.
Yes.
You're really helping that woman in such a powerful way.
That's right. I'm telling you, and women are waiting for this. They're hungry for a real man, a man that loves what's right with all his heart, soul, and might, along with nothing else. Over here, what's your goal in life?
My goal in life is to follow Christ. As I've recently gone through sort of a spiritual awakening, I've realized that it's one thing to become a believer and it's another to become a follower. And as long as I make following Christ the centerpiece of my existence, then everything else, all of my worldly desires and temptations have been muted.
It disappears. That's right. That desire
Been
leaves.
muted. And so that is my goal, is to know God and to follow Him.
That's right. And the last one is here in the back. What is your greatest enemy?
My greatest enemy in life is probably myself,
And what do you mean?
because self-doubt and, like you said, fear creeps into your mind. The greatest enemy anybody can have is their own self,
Yeah.
because you always doubt yourself whether or not you can do something or you can't.
And how old are you?
I'm 28.
And you doubt yourself at 28?
Sometimes.
Were you raised with your father and mother?
Yep.
And what was that like for you?
I had a father who passed away about 10 years ago, and then I had an entirely good home life in the suburbs. I grew up in New Jersey. I didn't grow up in California, though.
I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. And so your fear is overcoming yourself, right?
It's sometimes self-doubt, yeah.
Self-doubt, okay. Here we go. There's a principle that I'm telling you will work. God said, seek first the kingdom of God and His right way, and all will be added. You should not even be thinking about what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, where you're going to live, who you're going to marry, who you're not going to marry. That should not even be a part of your thinking at all. Your thinking should be seeking the Father, and He will add everything to you. Your greatest enemy is your mind, your thoughts, your greatest enemy. Every thought you get is a lie. They build you up to tear you down. That's all they ever do. If you pay attention, you would see that. That's why God said, bring every thought into captivity, every one of them, because they are not of Him. They are of your father, the devil. And every person who has anger lives in his thoughts, his or her thought, believing a lie. You know how Adam had a relationship with the Father? He only knew the truth. He didn't know the lie at all. And then Eve come along after listening to her father, Satan, and she convinced Adam that he could be his own God. Don't pay attention to your father. Like some wives do today. Don't pay attention to your father. Listen to me. And Adam listened to Eve, and he believed a lie, and from that point forward, it was impossible to believe the truth again. And so when you listen to your thoughts in your head, you're believing a lie. You got to doubt every thought you get. Because God said, my children shall know me by my voice. And His voice is not the voice that talks to you in your head. That is Satan, the deceiver, pretending to be God. God give us revelation. We live and walk by revelation, not by this. Not by this. But unless you forgive, you're not going to be able to get away from the voice of the devil. You're not going to be able to, because that's your daddy. Who is your daddy? Who is your daddy? That's your daddy. Because you have anger, and that's his nature. And reading the Bible and all that is not going to stop it. You must repent. You must admit that you're wrong. You got to get to see yourself and admit you're wrong and do nothing about it. And so the reason I ask those questions about what do you want, the goal and all that, you shouldn't even have any goals. Your only thing is to seek the Father, and he will add all things unto you. He will give it to you. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to stress over it. But when you're separated from God, you got to set goals. You got to have this and that. You want a certain kind of everything. But when you're back with the Father, you know that the Father is taking care of you. So drop the anger, overcome so you can overcome the imagination, and life will be added unto you. I have the best life. It's an amazing life. I have many challenges to deal with, but they're not inside of me anymore. They're out here, and I deal with them. I do. And I wasn't like that before. I forgave and he forgave me. You got to do this, man. It's time to pay attention to self so you can truly repent. It's abnormal to be all messed up and weak and pathetic and emotional and girly and transvestite and all that. All that stuff. It's just abnormal. And I'm telling you, when he took the anger away, he took the fear away. And then he set me on my on my road. Well, everything I do in life, I had no idea I would be doing. Sometimes I walk through this building, I see the TV show, the radio show, write books, and helping. I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. Where did this come from? I'm stunned, but I'm blessed. I love my earthly father, and I love God. And I love my mother. My mother started calling me to help her with the other kids that she had screwed up. And my father did too. One last thing about my father, and I'll take one question, or maybe two. My father, when I went to him and we worked it all out, he wanted me to help him with my other brothers and sisters. And I had some sisters, or a sister, that would not forgive him. And we had meetings when I would go back there to visit. He was like, let's get together and have a meeting with the kids. Okay. And I had one sister that would not, and my father begged for forgiveness. I'm like, man, stop begging. And he would like be crying on it. And the more he cried and begged, the more life she got from that. Because she felt like she was controlling him. When you're weak, they control you and you give them life. They love it. That's why if you wake up in the morning and you wake up like this, oh, nice morning, nice night. And then she's looking at you. Yeah. Why are you so happy? And she up there, the devil played in her mind all night, looking at you sleeping, think you dreaming about some other woman. She's like, what's wrong with you? You all happy. And then you say, well, I just had a good night's sleep. No, you didn't. You were dreaming about somebody. No, I wasn't. And then, let's say she can't get to you, right? You keep your joy. And then she won't stop. She'll just still nag at you and nag at you and nag until she gets you angry. And then she's like, oh, that's nice. She sucked life out of you. Every time you overreact, you give up life. You got to be still and know God. And it's going to be amazing. You got to forgive. You must apologize for hating your enemies.
You always encourage your listeners to go and communicate your forgiveness to them. Why one must do that? Can he do forgiving in his own privacy without going to communicate that forgiveness?
No.
Why is it important?
That's a cowardly way out. Oh, I want to write a letter. Or make a phone call. That's a coward. You need to face where you lost your innocence. You need to go to them. God said, go to them and forgive them. He didn't say write a letter or make a phone call or email, or Instagram, or text, or YouTube. You got to go to them and shake in your boots, and it'll be the last time you ever shake to anything on earth. You'll get your courage back. You really will get it back. You got to face it. That's why.
So, did you forgive your mom first and then you went up to her to communicate, or did you forgive as you communicate?
That's a very good question. When God allowed me to see that I resented my parents, He also caused me to forgive in that very moment. He really did. A sadness came upon me that I had never experienced before. And the sadness was about me being wrong for resenting them. That's what, it wasn't about what they did to me. It was about me being wrong, my being wrong. Is it me? Where, James? My being wrong. He correct me all the time. Now, I hate to have him on the show anymore. We were doing the show on Friday, and I said something wrong. You know how black people don't know English. That's not my cousin. I said something wrong. He corrected me really fast. I said, boy, stop correcting me. You scaring me. You're going to traumatize me up here. All right? You got to do it. How many people need to forgive? Go and do it. The moment you do it, you'll be free. You will. Your soul will reconnect. And the reason that you don't know what a father is, the reason you can't have a relationship with God besides your hate stuff, the resentment, is that you never had a good relationship with your earthly father. You never had a righteous father where you could look at and see the right way to go. He wasn't what he said he was. You've only had bad examples, so you see God in the same way. God is like so simple and easy. He just loves you. He already know you. He doesn't need you begging and asking him for forgiveness all day and begging for stuff. He already know you. He just wants you to live. He just wants you to get up, do your prayer, and live. And he'll take care of you. He's not a bad guy at all. He loves you. But you don't know that because you never had a right relationship with your earthly father. So you treat God in the way that you were treated by your earthly father. He's with you and he loves you. But you got to forgive. That's the only thing that's holding you back. Nothing else is holding you back but your unforgiveness. No medication going to solve it. No therapy, no nothing. You got to forgive. There was a young man that was here early. He left. He and his father left, 15 years old. They were having a rough time with this guy. He lives up in Colorado somewhere. And his mother found me on YouTube. She called for counseling. We did Skype. He and I did Skype together. In that very first counseling, after the discussion, what was going on, I told him what to do. And I asked, how do you feel right now? He said, I feel great. You've given me courage to stand up. I know what to do now. And he came down for the meeting. Because he was able to see and be honest and forgive. I'm telling you guys, you got to let this go. And let them call you woman hater, white hater, black hater. Those are children of the lie. They don't want you free. But if you love what's right, it can't bother you. Everything I do in life, I never imagined to do it. I didn't go to school for it or anything. I never imagined. And each and every one is in you too. But as long as you have that anger, you're never going to know it. All right? Any questions about that? And this was all races. This is not a race thing.
So
White mama, Jewish mama, black mama, Hispanic mama,
Jewish mamas are the worst.
Japanese mama, all the mamas. Go ahead.
So how did you forgive someone when that person passed when you were very, very young?
Yeah. Just realize that, when you get to know yourself, because you become like the person that you resent, when you get to know yourself, it's going to help you understand the person that you resent. And when you see that you're doing things and acting in a way that you really don't want to act, you wish you didn't do it, it's going to help you understand that person. And you wouldn't want someone to be angry at you about the things you can't help but do, right? Well, that person doesn't want you to be angry at them. And as you understand yourself, it will cause you to forgive them. Because you're going to understand. When you understand your nature, it'll help you understand the world around you. And that will cause you to forgive them. Not all, but most men and women, boys and girls, don't resent their fathers. They yearn for their fathers. They don't resent their fathers, but their mothers have told them that they resented their father. And they believe the mother. They believe into the lie. Right, and so she made them believe that they hate their fathers, and they don't. This for boys and girls. They hate their fathers with their mothers hate, not their own. They yearn for the father. That's what it's all about. Esteban, give a quick thing what happened to you as a result of dealing with all this. Esteban is from Arizona.
Right when I heard it, I knew for sure that what I needed to do, that I needed to go forgive. And it was like this. It took me 2 weeks to actually go and talk to my mom, but and my dad. But I knew that I was a woman. I knew it. I saw it right away. It was like a lesbian relationship with my wife, and I could just see it. And it was like this thing that I just needed to get out of me. And when I went to apologize, I remember getting in front of the house. And there was something inside of me that was telling me that no, don't go in there, don't go in there. And it was actually an audible sound that I made because it just came. I was just and I had to go. I went in there and I did it. And right when I did it, I felt something leave me. Yeah. But I didn't know what it was at first. And over time, things just started changing. And it was. I told Jesse the other day that I was talking to my wife, and it's been about, I think it was in December when I went over there. So it's been about 6 months. But my wife, it was funny because she told me, she goes, "I don't know how to handle you anymore." And it was such a revelation. It was such a revelation. Well, it was such it was such a revelation because I was like, I've been handled.
Yes.
You know, and I didn't even know it.
That's
and
right.
so now, and you know, it's so amazing because I have my brother Michael here with me and my son. And I remember when I thought I was saved, and I went and got baptized, and I was going up to people and telling them this, telling them that. And my brother never wanted to hang out with me. I remember calling him, he'd want to get off the phone with me in 1 minute. All the time. And now that I've forgiven my parents, it's not even me doing it. It's not even me doing it. Everything's changing in my life.
Yes.
And it's not even me doing it.
Thank you, man. One thing I want to close by saying is that there is two kinds of faith or belief. One faith or belief come by hearing. You hear the word, you hear about God, and that gives you a sense of faith. But there's a true faith that you are born into. And when you're born into that faith, you live by that. I really appreciate you guys coming, and thank you for your patience. We have food out in the back. "27 years ago, I started an organization called BOND, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And our purpose is to rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. I believe in God's order, and that order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. When a woman takes over, then all hell breaks loose because it's not the order of God. And it's not like a competition with the woman. It just is God's order. And when you have that order, it works. When you break that order, it fails. And in today's society, most men are living under the woman instead of under Christ. And that's what the primary problem is. And they're set up in the homes to become that way. Our battle is a spiritual battle all the time. It's a warfare between good and evil, right versus wrong. It's never a physical battle. Even though we do physical fights, of course, but the real battle is between good and evil. And men represent God. They represent Christ on earth if they've been born again. Even a weak man still represents God. He might be a weak one, but he still represents that. You know, while growing up, I didn't have my father there. My father got my mother pregnant when they were teenagers. And when she told him about it, he said, "No, that's not my baby." And so he wouldn't marry her. He wouldn't do the right thing. And my mother became very angry at him. And so she ended up marrying my stepfather before I was born, because in those days it was an embarrassment to have children out of wedlock. So she didn't want me born out of wedlock, so she married my stepfather. But as a kid growing up, I didn't want my stepfather. He was a good man. He tried to be nice to me. He did everything that a stepfather would do, but my soul did not accept him. My spirit wanted my earthly father. And so whenever, I would ask my mother about him, my dad, she'd say, oh, he's no good, forget about him. And so I started to resent her for that, because I get all the women I could get. That's what I was living for. Because I had that boy and I thought that can satisfy me. It would not. And so finally I asked God to let me see what's wrong with me. Because I would ask the preachers, and the black preachers at the time, and they said it was racism, that the white man was doing this to me. And so I believed into that, and if you know, whenever you believe a lie, that lie controls you, and the person that you believed it from control you as well. And so I fell into that whole thing for a while. But I asked God to let me see what was wrong. Let me see myself. Because I had read in the Bible that know thyself, right? Most people do not know themselves. They don't know themselves at all. And the beginning of salvation is to know thyself. And so I asked God, let me see myself. Let me see what's going on with me. And I forgot I asked, and I was getting dressed for work. And I saw at a glance, I was in the mirror, I saw this dark spirit inside of me. And it wasn't like a dark outside, it was like a wicked darkness inside of me. And I had never seen that before. And I'm like, wow, that's something else. And then God allowed me to see that I needed to forgive. And because it says, when you forgive others, he will forgive you, right? And I was about 38 years old at the time. My mother came out to visit her sister here in LA. And I knew I had to go and forgive her. And so I'm driving over there, and fear just overtook me. The closer I got to the house, the more fear overtook me. I'm thinking, wow, why am I so afraid of my mother? I'm a grown man, and I'm afraid of my mother. And I would deal, every woman I dated, I dealt with her like she was my mother. I had to cater to her and all kind of stuff. So I go in the house, and by this time, I just had total fear. And I said, I need to talk to you. And right away, Satan is saying, don't do it. You're going to mess up her vacation and all that. So I take her into the room, and I wanted my father. And I remember being a kid, and I used to say, wow, I want my father. I remember my father would come around sometimes because I was living with my grandmother. And my cousin's dad lived with us, too. We all grew up as brother. My grandmother raised us. And my father would come around from Indiana to visit. It was like, whenever he came, I felt completed. But he would go back, that boy came back again. That way down in my soul, I was yearning for my father. And so, long story short, I finally got a chance to meet my father, and I asked him what happened. And he told me what happened. And in that very moment, well, what happened before that is that I came to California, and as a young man, I had fear and doubt and worry and insecurities, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life at all. My plan was to, and I had started doing it somewhat, my plan was to buy a home, get a sports car, and have some sharp clothes.